In the last perek, we read of the Aron HaBrit being brought out to battle, and the Plishtim see it and mistakenly think that this is Hashem himself, and that it has the power to control if Am Yisrael will succeed or not. This is a very paganistic way of looking at the transpiring events. But being as they were pagans, I guess it's understandable. The real problem was that we did pretty much the same thing. We thought that if we can just bring in this symbol of spirituality without actually fixing any of the spiritual issues that brought about this painful war, then we'll be saved. In fact, we're kind of still doing that today. As noted in the last video, the strangest part of the geography of this prakim isn't actually what's mentioned, but what isn't. An Ishimini, who Chazal say was Shaul, runs up from the battlefield, up more or less Route 5 of today, up the mountains of Shiloh to share the news of the battle. Parenthetically, centuries later, there was a similar story in Greece, and based on that distance is the modern marathon. Today, there's a Tanakh marathon, each Chol HaMoed Sukkot, which is the full modern traditional marathon distance up from the area of the battle by Rosh Ayin and ending in Shiloh. It's kind of cool to be able to more or less trace the steps that would have been taken on the way up, running through the streets of Shomron where some will only travel in armored buses, and you're just running down the middle of the highway with the clean air of the Shomron mountains and running right through our history. I only did the half marathon, and it was a bunch of years ago, but it was really an incredible experience. It seems that the Ishimini may not have been the only one taking that path that day. After these events, we never hear of the Mishkan Shiloh standing again. We have hints to it having been destroyed in Tehillim and Sefer Yirmiyahu, but neither actually says when that happened. Being as it's never mentioned again, and after the Aron returns to Am Yisrael, which we'll read about soon, the Aron doesn't return to Shiloh. Perhaps these are signs that it was destroyed at this time. The archaeology, the thick layer of ash, along with the pottery vessels full of charred food dated to that time period, seem to corroborate this entirely. But the strange thing is, how could you leave that part out? That should have been the very next perek, but it's not here. Think how many prakim and even entire svarim surround the idea of the Beis Hamikdash being destroyed. And yet here, nothing. Not one pasuk when it happens, and only a couple of parenthetical psukim cryptically hinting at its outcome much later on. In fact, even if it wasn't destroyed at this time, it clearly states in these other svarim that it was destroyed at some point. Why not tell us about it no matter when it was? Here too, I think that perhaps the Tanakh is using a sense of irony. Maybe the Navi simply didn't think it would interest us. If you would have cared, you would have gone it when it still stood. You would have treated it properly and not as a tool that can be used to simply get what you need rather than a relationship where asking for what you need is meant to be a tool towards building that sense of closeness with Hashem. This in itself is an important reminder to us not to wait to cherish the ones we love and the people, places, and things we really do care about until it's too late. And if you do, don't come crying and mourning it later when you couldn't make the time and effort to deepen that relationship when you had the chance. But it's also more than that. We come back to the connection with Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu comes to the Beis Hamikdash with a message that it'll be destroyed, and he has to explain why. Where did we go wrong? So in Yirmiyahu Perek Gimel, the Navi calls them out again for relying on their own Abrit, as if it would save them. Maybe reminding them of this event that we're learning about, and saying that they're doing the same thing now with the Beis Hamikdash. Or in Yirmiyahu Perek Zayin, where he calls out the nation for thinking that it's blasphemous for him to be saying that the house of Hashem could be destroyed. How can a person even say such a thing? But Yirmiyahu isn't intimidated out of speaking his truth that Hashem has put in his mouth. Yirmiyahu says, you call it Hechal Hashem, Hechal Hashem. My family comes from Shiloh. Look what happened to the house of Hashem there. Destroyed and burnt down to the ground, taking my family's destiny down together with it. The destruction of the Mishkan was a very difficult episode in our history, but at the same time, it could have been a lesson that would have saved us the next time around, if only we had learned from it. And today, there are those who think the Jewish nation could never be dispersed again. The modern state of Israel, which maybe could have the potential of bringing in the third Beis Hamikdash, the beginning of the times of the Mashiach, it isn't a given. It's an opportunity, a chance to show that we have learned from the past, and this time, Bezrat Hashem, we'll do it right. hopefully.